Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Dark Souls 3. I am the Orca Theory, your friendly neighborhood ranter and debater on all things video games. So today we are going to be moving on from the Crystal Sages, or at least the Crystal Sage 1, who I summarily trounced in the last episode, as you just saw, hopefully. We're going to be moving on from him and heading towards the Cathedral of the Deep. One of my favorite areas in all the Souls game, but definitely Dark Souls 3. It's definitely up there. It's a really unique zone that, you know, it suffers from asset reuse. I feel like we've seen this kind of zone in a lot of other places, Bloodborne being kind of the eminent example there, kind of a cathedral setting surrounded by enemies. There's gravestones all over the place. But the level design in there is really, really neat, and the shortcuts are just phenomenal. This can be a little bit tricky. The one guy baits you into following, and then this guy... Oh! I thought I could walk away from that. I guess I just wasn't far enough. See if we can stun lock him at least a little bit. Oh man, I'm super sloppy. I apologize. I haven't played this game in a few days, so it's been a bit. I've actually been playing a lot more Dark Souls 2. Scholar of the First Sin. I finally got the upgrade to Scholar of the First Sin, so I've been making my way through that game again. Scholar of the First Sin, and you know, I won't talk too much about Dark Souls 2, but Scholar of the First Sin feels like a proper way to play the game. Hello? Hi. See you later. Some of the balancing changes, some of the enemy placements, it just feels a little bit more natural. Some of it does feel a little bit bullshit. That Forest of the Fallen Giants, the first main area there, there is a lot there that I was like, oh my god, there are just way too many enemies. I have no upgraded weapons. I am just getting used to this game again. It can be a little bit tricky, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm sitting at about the Lost Bastille. Oh, we got a whole bunch of stuff from her. Fantastic. We're going to take a look at that as soon as I make sure we're not in danger. But yeah, if you haven't upgraded Scholar of the First Sin, or if you haven't played Dark Souls 2, get that version. Especially if you're a Souls fan. It's an incredibly good upgrade for the game. Plus, it just comes with all the DLCs, too. And I'd never really messed with the last DLC piece. So we're going to take a look at her robes first. The Evangelist robes. Robe of an Evangelist, sent from the Cathedral. We've talked about that. These teachers, all women, came to enlighten inhabitants of the undead settlement and sent carriers on the path of sacrifice. So, kind of following their trail, they start up in the undead settlement, kind of roughly in that-ish direction. They come down the road of sacrifices, and they are carried here. We've seen those cage guys. That's how they're being transported. We saw also a couple carriages. Now let's take a look at the Herald armor. You find these armor sets throughout the game. Mostly just starter sets that you can pick up just randomly in the world. Steel helm said to be worn by heralds of the Way of White who deliver commandments of duty. Whoa, hello. You came back finally. I was waiting for him. Pro tip: game doesn't pause when you're in the menu screen. Some people new to the series don't realize that, and then shit like that happens. All right. So, Way of White who deliver commandments of duty. Protection made of steel has excellent physical absorption, but is found lacking against blunt strikes and lightning damage. There is, you know, I'll talk about that later. The types of strikes and damages that you can do. But this set is from the Way of White. A covenant from Dark Souls 1 that isn't in Dark Souls 3 nor Dark Souls 2 now that I'm playing it. It was a covenant led by the Allfather Lloyd, who was an uncle, an actual familial relation to Gwyn, the Lord of Cinder, the Lord of Sunlight from Dark Souls 1, kind of the, not necessarily the big bad if you follow the lore, but certainly the granddaddy of most of the events that happened in Dark Souls 1. Allfather Lloyd is a very, very interesting character. He seems to be in cahoots with Gwendolyn. Are you? Yep, you found me. Okay. So this is the Fallen Knight. We will actually find his set back in the Crucifixion Woods once I return there. I gotta watch out for bleeding. So if you can get him in a stun lock, this guy isn't too bad. But you gotta watch out for that bandit knife. Bleeding is one of those status effects that you don't really know how it works until it just happens to hit you. Did some decent trades there. Nice. So he fades on, doesn't drop his armor, so we will go back to the Crucifixion Woods at some point to go pick it up. And we got the Paladin's Ashes. Fantastic. Umbral Ash of a worn-out paladin who sought the Cathedral of the Deep. With this, the Shrine Handmaid will prepare new items. This paladin paid quite a price for his headstrong justice. So he was seeking out the Cathedral of the Deep. We find his ashes here on this corpse. We assume that maybe this fallen knight, who we'll get a lore dump on later, probably killed him, and that's where he laid out his body. But yeah, so Allfather Lloyd may have been connected to certain events in Dark Souls 1. We never actually meet him. He's not a physical character that we can interact with or engage with. We hear about him through different lore dumps. The coins we hear about him from, some of the Way of White stuff. Whoa! That slowdown that you see, consequently the slowdown that we've all been seeing. Did you respawn? Interesting. Yeah, they all did. Okay, so what we are seeing there, you saw that load in. Part of that was OBS, my recording software. It's interacting with Dark Souls 3 in a very dangerous way. Yeah, and these guys aren't going to try to follow me. She is going to cast a spell. Huh, fun. Did I rest at this bonfire? I must have rested. We'll go back there. Essentially, the items back there are a bunch of shards. There's a crystal lizard. I'm not terribly worried about those, so we're not going to worry about that. I'm not sure if I rested at that bonfire. I'll have to go back to the footage. But that does happen on occasion. I saw it in Dark Souls 1. If you do not rest at a bonfire, but you're traveling through multiple locations, and you go back to others, enemies will repopulate and respawn as if you rested at the bonfire. It's not a big deal. I just don't remember resting. So yeah, Allfather Lloyd was probably connected to his grandnephew, Gwendolyn. A lot of the events of the Way of White and the Dark Moon servants. Oof, that was fun. They were seeking to rekindle the first flame, essentially continuing the work of Gwyn himself, who did go and rekindle the flame. They were finding undead, spreading stories of a chosen undead that could usurp the Lord of Light. Let me get the spider shield there, and they could rekindle the first flame to keep the Age of Fire going. So I never gave that Firekeeper soul to what's-her-face, but that's not a big deal. We'll do that in a second. Spider shield. A shield bearing a large etching of a spider. Shields of this style are commonly used by savage mountain bandits like the one we just found, and offer high resistance to poison. So kind of a hint right there that you might be dealing with poison. In this area, not so much. But this could be a very handy shield when you go back through the Farron Woods. The spider shield is one of my favorite parrying shields. For whatever reason, I feel like I parry better with that individual shield. This area could be tricky. I'm going to pull out my throwing knives to try and see if I can kite out some of these enemies here. There are a bunch of dogs, a bunch of crossbow dudes, and the trees obscure them really, really well. This is good level design, as far as I'm concerned. A couple different paths you can take to get through it. It's a nice mini challenge. You just have to be very, very careful, because once you start activating these enemies, they will just continue. Crossbows aren't a big deal, luckily. Oh, I dodged into him. Idiot. Yeah, but crossbows aren't a big deal. You just want to keep moving. And you saw me try to keep moving, but I kept the lock on for some reason. And when I locked on, the camera spun around. I ended up rolling into the dog and to my death. But we start right here, so we're just going to keep going. You know, the events of Dark Souls 1, you know, because it's been 4 or 5 years since the original release on PS3. I played the 360 version about a year after that released. We are pretty knowledgeable in those events, in what happened there, what brought us to those events, who are the major players that brought about those events. I'm gonna die again. Knock him down. Oh, of course. Keep moving. I will get through this area. And because we are knowledgeable, I feel like that hinders everything about Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3. And I'm finding that again now that I'm replaying Dark Souls 2. And this is really my 3rd or 4th time through this game. You know, I'm finding my judgments about the lore of these games to be heavily influenced by what I know about Dark Souls 1. You know, you know, some of the first YouTube videos that I really engaged with were the E&B lore videos, a German Spies Demon Souls series. You know, some of the what I call the grandparents of the Souls lore universe. You know, those are some of the first videos I engaged with, and I subscribe heavily to their theories. I think Marcus, of Epic Name Bro fame, I subscribe to his lore knowledge. I think it's very concrete, in that he uses lore dumps, and what's actually in the game, to inform his decisions about what might be true in this universe. He doesn't, you know, he takes a look at cut content, and he looks at some of the Japanese wording, because, you know, some things do get lost in translation, some things get mistranslated, some things are done deliberately, you know, and some things are done on mistake. And so he, you know, he takes a look at that stuff, but a lot of his impressions are done based on how the game is presented to us as Westerners, and how the game is presented to us without the cut content factoring in. This guy is fun. Just back up. Keep going, and dodge. Very good. And I'm finding that my impressions of Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3 are heavily influenced by their thoughts, and I'm trying not to, because it's a very easy thing to do, to just say like, oh, well, you know, Allfather Lloyd had a big influence on the events of Dark Souls 1, so now that I find a Way of White thing here at the Cathedral of the Deep, he must have an influence here in Dark Souls 3, when that might not necessarily be the case. I love this kind of little parish here, this little parish chapel. So, you know, I ramble a lot in these videos, and that's part of the fun for me. This is, yeah, I'm just doing a stream of consciousness playthrough here. Kind of seeing things as I take them in sequential order. Knowing full well what's coming down the pike, but just kind of taking things at face value. And what I'm trying to do is avoid my assumptions about Dark Souls 1, which is really, really tough. We got the Notched Whip, which does give us a little bit of insight into the cathedral here. It's in weapons. Should have just gone to weapons. Notched Whip. A whip with thorny spikes that shred skin, causing heavy bleeding. The Cleansing Chapel, which is the place we are currently in right now, uses whips such as these in order to produce the drops and puddles to wipe clean during its rituals. Oof. So the... kind of going back to church theology and philosophy here, something that's popular in olden times, you know, we're talking medieval times, Catholic Church, certain priests and certain holy men would flail themselves. They'd take what looks like a rope with just thorns on it, and they'd slap it against their back, and they would draw blood. And it was a way to expiate... Is that the right word? Yeah, expiate sins from their body by physically drawing blood from them in hopes of expelling sin. The Cathedral of the Deep apparently engages in something that's similar. Maybe not self-flagellation, but certainly flagellation of sinners, or of heretics, more likely. I also think it's interesting, and you'll see that he's not here, because at this point, I actually don't own the DLC. I'm waiting for a sale to buy it, so hopefully by the end of this run, it'll be on sale enough where I'll feel comfortable buying it. You find it here, in this location, which is where you also will meet the Ashes of Ariandel NPC that will take you to that new DLC location. And in the trailers, you see someone who is self-flagellating. So it's just a neat connection. Whether or not Ashes of Ariandel has any connection to the Cathedral of the Deep, I'm assuming not. I'm under the assumption that there is some heavy Velka going on there. I do want to go back to Firelink Shrine, though, because I want to give that Firekeeper the soul, because that's important. That's an important thing you can do. It just gives you more options, but we do get a nice little lower dump from there. Plus, since I died, I could probably get another free level up from what's-his-face, because I believe I have 2 more to go. And just FYI, if you're playing through this for the first time, you have until the first major Lord Soul boss to get that done. Once they are defeated, and we'll talk about them when we get there. Once they are defeated, this quest line will be over, so you want to make sure you get all the steps done before then. We've got time, in other words. It's time to die. I could probably really use some extra vigor. I've been leveling up vitality, but I'd really like to give myself some more health at this point. We're getting to a point in the game where I would really like to do that. And we get another one, and I believe that kind of tops us off.
Be safe.
Be safe. Allah.
Oh, I would do.
Oh, we can get another. Sick. Oh, okay. I've attained ample strength.
Ample strength. All will soon be clear, my good lord.
And that's your clue. That things are done. You have completed his part of the quest line. Once we get past the first Lord Soul boss, we will commence upon the next step, which is a much easier step to find and do. You have anything of interest for me? I really should buy some more embers. I really should. I only have 6. But what I'd like to maybe do is get a new armor set. Not that I don't enjoy Lucatiel's best armor here, but it's just